We're live, and I'm going to hit record. Hello. Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to the Rose Theater's Conservatory production of Frankenstein. Wayne?
Yes, hi, my name is Wayne. I'm a high school intern and co-director of the show. And the piece you're about to see is 100% devised by the students. For the past 4 weeks in the morning, for 3 hours in the morning, we worked with the original script and picked the thing apart and really chose the best parts to present to you today. And I'm very excited for you to see it.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am a teaching artist intern and a co-director. And the work that you are seeing today has all been done virtually over Zoom. So that means we have not met in the same room this entire process. In fact, I'm all the way in New Jersey. Everyone else is in Nebraska, but it feels like we're in the same room when we're on together. So I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Stephanie Jacobson, and I'm another one of the co-directors and a teaching artist here at the Rose Theater. We have previously recorded, as Wayne, one of our co-directors, and Sarah, one of our co-directors, have said, we've previously recorded this performance, and we're going to stream it live now. If you would like to stay afterwards, the show runs about 24 minutes or so. If you'd like to stay afterwards, we're going to be doing a live Q&A where you can type in your questions to the chat in the YouTube, and I will read them back to our artist here in our Zoom classroom. And we have also prepared some demonstrations for how we devised and created the show all together. So I hope that you get to stay, and I hope that you can ask some questions. We can't wait to share. So without further ado, oh, you know what I forgot to say? Hey, this is all on Zoom. There is technology. There might be some sounds in our lives, in our rooms, wherever we are. There might also be a little bit of glitches, and that's okay, because what we remembered most about all that was that it reminded us that it is live theater, even though here we are virtually. So it's pretty exciting, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for sharing and supporting all these young actors. So here we go. We're going to share our video. Thank you so much.
Our story begins on Captain Robert Walton's ship, bound for the North Pole on a voyage of exploration. The ship is trapped on either side by impassable ice that seems to have no end. Walton hears his crew talking on the ship deck. Walton peers over the edge. He sees a man on the ice, nearly frozen. He looks dead until the man's chest begins to rise and fall. A man is brought onto the ship. Once awake, he shares his name as Victor Frankenstein. Walton has many questions and asks why Victor was so far north on his own. Victor explains that he isn't alone. He's seeking revenge.
Victor's obsession began with bringing the dead to life at university. His professor called his work the ravings of lunatic alchemists. The professor insisted that Victor start his studies anew. This only made Victor more determined to prove his discoveries.
Elizabeth, Victor's fiancée, asked to learn more about Victor's work, to which Victor told her about his discovery of animal electricity, when dead bodies are brought to life by electrical current. While Victor was impassioned by this, Elizabeth couldn't help but feel unsettled.
Victor secretly collected arms and hands, legs and feet, a torso with all the vital organs, and most importantly, a human brain. And so Victor locked himself away in his workroom for hours, into days, into weeks working. He worked late into the night until he collapsed from fatigue. When he awoke, he started again. Victor's creation had come to life, but It was not how Victor had imagined. It was ugly and misbegotten. He wanted to destroy it, but before he could, the creature stood up. Out of fear, Victor ran away, and the creature could not find Victor. Lost and confused, the creature escaped into the countryside.
Victor demanded that all the doors be locked. He ran to Elizabeth, begging her forgiveness. She comforted him, promising that all would be well.
But Victor knew it wasn't over. When he went to his workroom the next day, his journal was gone, and so was his creature. As the nearly blind grandfather and his son were finishing their soup, the son noticed that the basket for collecting vegetables had been filled outside his door. The son was curious as to who could have done this kind act. He asked the grandfather to keep watch at the house while he went farming.
The nasty landlord went to collect rent from the family. The nearly blind grandfather answered the door. The landlord demanded payment, and as he raised his hand to hit the old man, the creature came out from hiding, scaring the landlord off before any harm was done.
The grandfather thanked the creature and welcomed him into the home, calling him a friend and feeding him. The son came back from farming, and once he saw the creature's face, he screamed for the creature to get out. The creature, confused, angry, and upset at the family's betrayal, set their house on fire.
creature had no other choice but to find and confront Victor. Near the Frankenstein Manor, he saw Victor's younger brother playing a game. Once the creature discovered the relation of William to Victor, he quickly sought revenge and strangled William to death.
Elizabeth went running to Victor with the news of William's death. Right away, Victor knew who had done it. He quickly went off looking for his creature.
The creature near the woods. Victor's intent was to kill the creature, but upon seeing his creation, he could not. The creature promised that he would leave Victor's family alone if Victor provided him with a female companion. A companion to love the creature without judgment. Victor agreed to this task.
Elizabeth found a letter from Victor, telling her he left to finish his research.
Victor scoured the graveyard for all the necessary body parts to build his creature's companion. All he had left to do was to apply the power of life, but he found himself unable to complete his task. The creature was broken-hearted and vowed revenge on Victor.
I will be with you on your wedding night. I will have my revenge. I will have my revenge. I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
I will have my revenge.
Victor would not run from the threat of the creature, simply dismissing the creature's warning as a bad dream. Despite the doom that overshadowed the event, Victor's loved ones, including his proud father, joyfully witnessed the marriage of Elizabeth and Victor.
Before the festivities had ended, Victor heard his father screaming. He knew it was the creature and ran to where his father screamed, only to find him dead. Next, Victor ran back to Elizabeth, hoping to keep her safe from his creature.
But Victor was too late. Elizabeth was dead. Victor hung over her in despair, and in the window, he saw him. The monster, the hideous monster with a grin on his face.
Trying to trace the footsteps of his enemy, Victor ended up at the cemetery, where now Elizabeth, William, and his father lay dead. Victor vowed to destroy his monster and to pursue him until either he or the creature perished in mortal conflict. Wanting to tempt Victor, the creature had left a trail. Victor vowed to follow him to the depths of hell.
As Victor nears the end of his life, he asks Walton to carry out his revenge and kill the creature. Victor dies calling out for his loved one's ghosts. Shortly after Victor dies, the creature jumps onto Walton's ship and cries for the loss of his creator.
The creature vows to cause no more harm. All he has left to do is to build his own funeral pyre and die.
And as the creature joins Victor in death, the memory of them both vanishes.
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 Vanishes. Vanishes.
Vanishes.
Vanished.
And now on to vows.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I don't know about you all watching at home or for our whole creative ensemble, but it was really exciting to watch that and knowing that we were sharing a space. And something that I want to make sure, and I didn't share this before, and I should have shared this before, is that, oh, sorry, there's my dog. I should have shared this before, is that all of our artists, they designed the show, they performed the show, they composed. All of the music was recorded live from instruments that all of our actors here play. And we sent home a small box of art supplies to create this, but most everything was from what they had at home. So knowing that, we're sure that you might have some questions. And while you're thinking about some questions, and remember, you can ask questions on the chat on YouTube. I almost said the YouTube. What are you gonna do? On YouTube, sorry friends. And I'll read them and have our actors answer them. But before, we would like to go through and have our cast introduce themselves, say who they played, and they're also going to share what moment in the play stood out to them the most. So let's start with Jules.
Hello, my name is Jules, and I played Walton and various other puppets. And my favorite part of the show was when I make the house sink because it's on fire, because I just think it looks really cool on the shadow screen.
Hi, my name's Laddie. I play both the professor for that's Victor's boss, and also the landlord. I also play some instruments. And my favorite scene is by far when the first person who dies, William's death. I feel like is really well staged.
Brianna.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I play, forgot who I played. I play the grandfather's son, William, and Victor's father. And I also play the trombone and do various shadow things. And my favorite scene is the second time I die. I die 3 times, but my favorite one is the second time I die because I get to lay down on my floor and it's really comfortable down there.
Hi, my name is Noemi. I played the creature, I played the guitar, and I also did several puppets. And my favorite moment is when there is half of my face as the creature on the screen and then the upper half of Isabella's face as Victor on the screen. And if Zoom is oriented correctly, our faces line up to create one face, and it is an extremely cool effect that I think is just visually stunning.
Hi, my name is Isabella. I play Victor, and I play the cello a little bit, and I also do a number of shadow puppets. And my favorite part is probably just putting on my suit and tie. I learned how to tie a cravat for this, and I feel very proud of it.
Hi, I'm Emmy. I play Elizabeth as well as the flute and various shadow puppets. And one of my favorite parts has to be when Victor goes back to the graveyard after all of his loved ones have been buried there.
Hi, my name is Wayne. While also being on the directing team, I played the grandfather and also did some of the various shadow puppetry scenes. And I think my favorite is the very first time the graveyard comes on screen. I think it's the moment that like the chilling and horrific aspect of Frankenstein is really introduced into the show and sets the tone for the rest of it. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And while you were introducing yourselves, we had a slew of questions coming in here. Here we go. There's a lot of questions. This is awesome. Okay. I had one and then it moved. Okay. Oh, one of the questions from Sarah is, what tools did you use to make the shadow puppets? Wayne, wait, puppets. Wayne, right?
Yeah. Actually, luckily, I have something. Let me go grab her. I have a puppet I brought with me.
We all prepared. We knew kind of what questions might be bubbling for people. So each of our artists have prepared little demos to show you as we talk about it so that we can demonstrate what happened. Which is why I use the word demo 2 times.
Yeah, so in the box that we were given at the beginning of the process, there was some cardstock like folder paper. And so that was what I used for a lot of my puppetry. What I did was I would take that folder, trace out the scene that I wanted. For example, there's the graveyard. I would trace out a graveyard scene and then just go through and cut that. And so that ended up with this. Throughout the show, various characters die, so I like added their gravestones as it went on. And then also, since it's such a light piece of I was gonna say fabric, it's not fabric. Since it's such a light paper and it kind of shines, I put some tape on the back of it so that it looked like there was some ground and then everything above it was actually above ground. That's a lot of what I used. Sometimes when it came to like special things like the stained glass church, I did the same process. I just took this poster, cut up what I wanted, and then I cut out some gels and taped them all along the holes. So that is my process for creating shadow puppets.
Wayne, can you also show us, do you have the shadow screen there? Okay, great.
I do. I'd love to show you my shadow screen. Okay, so it's basically just a cardboard box that I cut and manipulated to, I guess I'll give you a peek. There she is. I have it set up to where like all of the gels we use, I have on one side. I'm not in my normal space, but I usually have the various scenes that I have either on top or on the sides. Like on the top, I have the clock and the sun and the moon and the clock dial. And then on the inside, there's this piece of film right there, so that if I were to put the camera in front of this and then shine the light, then creates nice shadows. And then you can put a gel over the camera. It's basically just took a gel and I cut it smaller and taped the edges to tape it on the screen. And then you get a color. Yeah, so that is my shadow box.
Thank you, Wayne. That was great. And Wayne, you know, and the interesting thing is that we are all prepared to talk about small parts of it, but everyone that you see on the screen, okay, except for Sarah and I didn't do that part, but everyone had their own shadow box at home. They created puppets. You know what might be interesting is that some of it was puppets, but Emmy, would you mind talking about some of the objects that we used instead of puppets?
Yes, I can. So sometimes instead of making like actual cut out puppets, we would go around our house and find objects. For instance, for the scene where Victor and Elizabeth get married, I have these two rings that I would just put on my fingers behind the shadow screen. And another thing is the scene with the mountains and the clouds. I did not cut out clouds out of paper. I found these scrunchies that were actually behind the shadow screen, and I just moved them along on the top of the shadow screen above the mountains, and they looked like clouds.
Thank you, Emmy. So Emmy was saying, I know sometimes with something that we find out with Zoom is, especially if we've been using music before we speak, our speaking volume is lower. So I'm just gonna repeat some of the things that I heard in case it was hard, Emmy, because you have all done that for me. We've all done it for Sarah. We've all done it for all of us. The last part, Emmy was saying that instead of cutting out clouds, she used those scrunchies as the clouds over the mountain that she created out of paper. Which is great, and using a lot of the hands. And Emmy also used her hands for the fighting scenes too. This is really beautiful. We have another question about what was the storyboarding like? How did we keep track of that? Isabella, would you mind talking to us about how we wrote down our blocking and how we storyboarded that?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So we started this process with the rights to a script that we were gonna use and record. But as we were going through it and realizing that we wanted to like get out of the Zoom talking boxes of it all, I wanted to make this a much more visual and puppet and silent film based thing. We realized that just dialogue wasn't really working for us. So we started this process just picking important pieces of dialogue and storyboarding them and recording them over silent film acted scenes, and that ended up looking really weird because there was like dialogue but no one's mouths were moving, and it was scary, and we decided that was not where we wanted to go. So instead we did short bits of narration, and we just went from like the novel and adapted our own version that was completely new. And a lot of devising was we had a lot of freedom with that since we were at home. So like Emmy said, we could use random objects. I had like Barbies behind my screen at one point. And we were figuring out about like gels and putting them on our camera versus putting them on our light source and different things like that that we could only do at home. Or like I lay on my bed and then I go through my closet. Like there's a lot of possibilities we had with devising that we wouldn't have had in just an actual theater space, which was really cool and allowed us to make a really unique piece of theater.
Thank you so much, Isabella. We also, thanks to Isabella, we had created like a master blocking list, and we also had, Sarah did a great job of creating a storyboarding memo that had everything that taking screenshots of what we did every day and adding it into a master document where each artist could add their own individual blocking, so we could keep track of it like that. As well as we had another document later that had, what gel do you use? Where is your Barbie? Where is your light source? Because the actors, if you notice, they were so smart and they used their cameras of their computer and of their phone in different angles and light sources in different ways too. Okay, there's so many great questions. Someone asked about the music. Laddie, would you talk to us about the process of composing and playing music? And everyone get your instruments ready.
So all of us, we're all surprisingly both actors and musicians. So we all had like an instrument that we would play. Like Isabella would play the cello, and Jules had a spam joe, which was really cool. It makes a really, really cool noise. Noemi has a guitar, Brianna has a trombone, and Emmy has a flute. And then I have a mostly broken violin and a piano. I say mostly broken because I started with 3 strings and now I have 1. And so they would ask us throughout the story to figure out, they're like, hey, we need you to compose this. It needs to be happy and sad at the same time. Go, come back in 10 minutes. So I don't know how everyone else did it, but I would end up playing around with chords. And sometimes I'd find something that was really cool and I'd be like, oh, this is really cool. And I was like, oh, wait, this is the Superman theme song. That's why this sounds cool. This is copyrighted already. Can't use this. But then we would eventually figure something out. And then often we'd kind of change it a little bit as the show went on. Like maybe just change the key, maybe change like 1 or 2 fingerings. Well, for piano, that's how it works. And then we also use our instruments to make sound effects.
Thank you, Laddie. Laddie composed all of the music and wrote it all as well. It was really impactful. All of the live music, which was an idea that Sarah brought to the table, which I don't know how familiar everyone who's watching at home knows about Zoom, but sound and Zoom are, they're just like frenemies. They're frenemies. And it's challenging. So we've spent a lot of the process figuring out how much underscoring you can have with the taped narration. And a big reason why we taped our voices is because we knew the actors would be running around their rooms and not necessarily by microphones. And again, that's what Sarah brought to the table. So that's another reason why we're so thankful for our friend in New Jersey. There were a lot of mentions on this about the gels and the look of it. So I wonder if we could have Jules talk about the gels and a little bit about the makeup, and then have Noemi jump in and talk about the acting style that we chose for this.
Of course. So what we did for gels, makeup and gels kind of go together. And so we either had, Isabella mentioned it before, but we had like the gel over our camera or like over our light source. But with our makeup, Stephanie sent us in our big box that Wayne talked about, a couple of makeup kits. And we used black and white makeup because we based it off the style of silent film. And so Stephanie sent us this nice black makeup. And how we did it is the way the gels look, the gels either, depending on where you put them on your camera and like the color and stuff, make it look like lighter or darker, most of the time darker. So what we did is we took the black makeup and we really accentuated our eyes and around our mouths and like our jaw lines, and very specific for all you makeup gurus out there, you know, like your highlight lines and things like that. We really accentuated those, and we really, because over the shadow screen here, it makes it look darker, or not the shadow screen, but over a gel it makes it look darker. And so you can kind of see my eyes. And since Noemi will talk about, but silent film is all about like emotion. We really accentuated like our mouth and our eyes, since like we weren't moving our mouth a lot, so our eyes were like really the majority. And like with me, I had a big beard, so makeup can also help with character. And so with character, you know, I had the big beard. Noemi kind of had the disheveled, the creature look. We used like Emmy had really accentuated like feminine lips for Elizabeth, since she's considered like the beautiful wife of Victor. And so yeah, we just had a lot of fun with it. And if Stephanie, I think you have a picture of all of us putting on makeup on. And so everybody kind of has different techniques for it. And of course, there are many people who are probably a lot better at putting it on than me. But yeah, so there's all of us with our makeup. And you can see all of us kind of has a unique look for our character, which I think was also really cool, because in silent film, sometimes everybody like has the same eyes or like the same mouths or whatever, because everything is black and white. But I like how we found creative ways to take our two main colors and make cool things out of it.
So jumping off from where Jules started, the time we spent on screen acting was very inspired by silent black and white film. So on week one of our assignments was to watch some old black and white horror films like Nosferatu, and then some other ones that I can't remember. And the things that stood out were everyone is very close to the camera and has huge emotions on their faces. And when you're over Zoom, it can be a lot harder to portray and show those emotions. So having I don't want to say overacted, but like close to overacted things can really help communicate the emotions that the characters have. And then we did not ever move our mouths on screen the way that, you know, silent film characters do. And because, you know, Stephanie was saying the audio can be a little bit funky sometimes. So by having recorded music and dialogue coming in over it, it was very inspired by those styles.
Thank you so much. I am constantly impressed. And before we did this, we all talked about we're all going to prepare a little something to show and to own our creative leadership in this process. And I hope that you are all seeing this too. Something that I forgot to connect to when Laddie did a really great transition, and I just let it fall just like that, Laddie. I'm sorry, I didn't pick it up, but Laddie talked about not only composing the music to create an emotional lift for the piece and more emotional information, but also how we used instruments to do sound effects. So I pick it up off the floor where Laddie dropped it, and I kindly bring it over to Brianna to talk about our sound effects. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. This object is really cool. Anyway, for sound effects, personally, it was so what I did for sound effects was I was for one of them, just played a little bit flat on the trombone, and it kind of sounded like a boat horn, or what I think a boat horn sounds like, because I live in Nebraska and I've never seen a boat with a horn on it. And I also, for one of the scenes where Victor like started to the room and slams the door, we couldn't get like the slamming audio to pick up on Isabella's end. So I just slammed my case shut in front of my microphone so that it would read better. And I know Laddie with his one-stringed violin was like making floorboard creaky sounds. It was kind of like the musical process where you just made noises and you saw what worked.
Thank you, Brianna. It was awesome. It was really, there was so much trial and error, and we all just had to be pretty easygoing about it. And this cast was incredible with that. Like, oh, I have this. And we would try things Jules, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. There was one instrument that we didn't get to use in the show. I do feel it is time for it to make its entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Oh, the spam.
Banjo.
We tried so hard. It didn't work. But
We
now
weren't sponsored by spam though. Unfortunately, spam. If you're looking for someone to sponsor.
Oh, you're right. Ooh.
Generic canned meat banjo.
And can you imagine that we're not all in the actual same room? It feels like that is one of the most magical things, is that we've all commented that we all feel like we're in the same space, even though we have never been since the beginning of camp. And speaking that is an unusual process, Sarah, would you talk to us a little bit about how having a class on Zoom and what we did as teaching artists, and how that helped shape this process?
Of course. So our conservatory met for 5 hours a day. However, the students worked on Frankenstein for 3 hours in the morning, and then 2 hours in the afternoon. They worked with other teaching artists on other topics. Such the first week, they worked on playwriting and some theater for social change in the afternoons. The second week, they did poetry and movement pieces. The third week in the afternoons, they worked on musical theater. And the fourth week, we worked a bit on a social justice book club. So there was
Sarah, I'm sorry. This is a thing we were this is like the prop. This is a great example of class on Zoom. Sarah, because you played Level Up for our bows, it is hard to hear you now. So we're going to need you to level up. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Amazing. Okay, so the class met for 5 hours a day over the past 4 weeks. And in the mornings, the students worked on Frankenstein for 3 hours, and then they took an hour lunch break, and then came back for 2 hours to work on other creative topics. So the first week in the afternoons, they worked on playwriting and theater for social change. The second week, they worked on poetry and movement. The third week, they worked on musical theater. And the fourth week, we started a bit of a social justice book club, which was very cool. So the students' creative juices were flowing throughout the entire day. Now, in the morning, we worked on Frankenstein consistently for the 4 weeks. Now, meeting on a screen for 5 hours is a very long time. However, we broke it up with breaks, about every hour, a 10-minute break, and also thoughtfulness work and off-screen challenges where we told the students to come back with branches and also create things off screen to Britney Spears lyrics and devising techniques. And then they came back and we got to see what the students created and everyone shared. Stephanie also made a website for the entire project that is beautiful. So definitely check that out if you get a chance, if you want to see a bit more about the process and what the students did throughout the weeks. Yes, we have this beautiful website, and it will have a link to the performance. It has the bios, the beautiful headshots that we took on Zoom. Look at those. Look at those. They're so good. And it also has photos of what we've done, and every single week, and afternoon workshops, and just a lot of creativity went into that website. So if you're interested, definitely take a look and see what the students worked on. And yeah, it's been an incredible 4 weeks, and the students are so creative, and they got to stretch that creativity in so many different ways.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Sarah, that was great. I now I'm gonna read, sorry, this is my dog. Okay. We had so many great questions. Would someone like to answer the question is, had any of the artists read the novel, Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein before we did this? Noemi?
I have. I read it for a class this last year, and I think having that experience of reading that really helped in thinking about devising and how to portray this story.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm obviously not good at speaking and reading at the same time. Thank you so much. We have questions about, oh, this is a question that everyone can answer. Could you please answer, everyone in the cast, we'll start with this one. What was the most challenging thing about this process? What was the most challenging thing about this process? Isabella?
I'm a playwright and I'm very much about like scripts and like saying words. That's what I do. And when I came into this, I was like, we're not saying words, we're doing it silently. What? And it was difficult for me to grasp that and like take that and make it super visual in that way. But I feel like I've grown a lot through that. I think that's a really cool way of doing theater that I wouldn't have experienced without this. So yeah.
Jules?
The hardest part for me was trying to, I guess, find space for everything. Because, like, I'm actually the only one who's doing this on a phone. So my screen was a lot smaller. So I had to find ways to, like, get around having a small screen, which I chose that, by the way. So don't worry about that. That wasn't like, yeah, that was just on me. But I just think finding space for it, and also like I've never kind of done a play where I'm in just like a room by myself running from a cardboard box to a stand on a mini fridge to like so I don't know, it was just kind of getting over that initial feeling of like we're doing this together, but like I'm just in my room running around in a fake beard. So yeah.
Noemi?
For me, I think the hardest part was getting back into a creative kind of mood after, many months of being in my house, not really being creative at all, and just that kind of brain shift that has to happen to get back into, creating theater. But once I got over that shift, had an amazing time creating this.
Emmy?
The most challenging thing for me was probably how much you had to think about, because you had to think about where your device was placed, the angle that your camera was at. You had to change your gel, set your props, set your light source, make sure nothing was in the way. And it was just kind of a lot you had to think about in between every transition. And so sometimes just trying like to focus on like one of those instead of trying to do all of them at the same time was something that was kind of difficult for me.
Yeah, all of those transitions and writing all of that. That's another thing. If you're interested, our website was also our classroom. So it had every document for all of our artists to download and look at, as well as reference materials and photos. So if you want to see more of all of the wildness Emmy is talking about, please do. Who else would? Laddie? Thank you.
So for me, the hardest part of this process was staying organized. Because I originally thought, I was like, oh, I have one piece of music. I don't need to organize that. It'll be fine. But then, like, by the end of the show, I was like, oh, here's all this scoring that's completely out of order. So I ended up retranscribing all my music on a completely different set of sheets. So that was really awesome. By the end, I had it all organized. Also, just like, it's a weird medium. Zoom is a weird medium.
Thank you, Laddie. Oh, Brianna, please, thank you.
I think like knowing when to come in is really hard, kind of because like instead of like because on stage like it's easy to know when you come in because like you can see what's happening, but sometimes on Zoom there's like an audio lag, so you'll think you're right on time, but they've actually said the narration ended like 5 minutes ago and everyone's just waiting for you, or like you have to. For me, I have to move my trombone case off of a table and then put that table in my closet and then turn off my light and change my gel and put a jacket on and wipe off my fake mustache and then go on screen. So it's like there's several variables and it's really hard to like do them fluidly and still like I don't know, make it feel like you're actually a professional human being.
We miss techies.
Everyone was definitely multitasking, except for Sarah and I. We were lazy, getting a tan. Wayne, would you mind talking about what was the most challenging?
Yeah, for me, this is my first act as an intern at the Rose. So, and then also with Conservatory, it's always so wild because Stephanie is always having us do something I've A, never heard about, and B, because I've never heard about it, know absolutely nothing about. So in the beginning, I was nervous because I had to be not a professional, but I had to like at least look like I knew what I was talking about. And then to do it over Zoom, it was hard for me to find that balance of being like educational in that way to be able to give blocking and things like that. But then I think the second I realized that we all don't know what we're doing and we're all just creating together and making mistakes and fixing them and like actually making good art was the moment I realized that A is not that serious, but B, that was when the best art was made. So yeah.
Thank you. I think everyone got a chance to answer that. Am I correct? Okay. Okay, great. We'll have two more questions from our group before we go this evening. One was, would someone like to answer, what was it like to perform without a live audience? I thought that was a really interesting question. So what was it like to perform without a live audience? Oh, Jules.
I think everybody can relate to this, but like even like in the group chat we were talking about a bit, it oddly feels like very similar, I guess. Like you still get like the before show nerves, or the like like oddly thinking, oh wait, I'm about to miss my cue, or like I totally like even though it's like pre-recorded anyway, but like and there's no chance for that, but like it's different, but you oddly feel that same like excitement as if like other people are like right across from you, or like. And also I know it felt weird to like a few people I know mentioned it felt weird to watch ourselves, I guess, because like we're normally don't get to see how like we look performing because we're the ones performing, but like here we are, we just watched our show as like another audience member, so like it's like contradicting. It's so similar emotionally, but like it's such a different unique experience, and I think that's what made this year awesome, because like this was a unique experience on its own. Yes, it's not the same, and there are a few things that we miss about like normal Rose Camp, but like it was its own unique experience, and I think that's what made it great.
Noemi?
Really quickly, in my experience, sometimes I was performing, I would just suddenly realize how strange it was. Like, I am twitching on my rug in front of a camera. Like, that is just so weird. But for the majority, it was, like Joel said, similar to a normal show.
Did anyone else want to answer that question? Oh, Isabella. Okay, good. I'm glad.
My room feels a little bit more like a theater now. I've just been like running all around it doing theater. But I would say like runs bleed into shows when you're just like recording them over and over. You're just like, we're doing it again. It feels like a routine. And then when I was watching it, my body was like, gotta fall to the ground and cry now. And then I was like, wait, nope, you don't. You're just watching it. But yeah, it's a very interesting experience. I think it's a medium that is not flexible, but if you try hard enough, you can make it happen.
Okay, my dog is barking. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say this really quick. Another great question was, if you could tell another story through shadow puppetry, what story would you tell? Sarah, will you call on people just because my space is noisier right now? Thank you.
Of course. Who would like to share first? We've talked about this a little bit in class, so. Is Jules.
Is Jules. I think that this wasn't my answer before, but Coraline would be really cool because it reminds me of Frankenstein, the fact that like you watch the movie and it has this like these creepy aspects to it, you know, and I feel like that would just show up really cool on like shadow screen.
Yeah. Isabella.
I think like the original Grimm's Brothers Cinderella, where you're just like cutting off people's toes and stuff, like that'd be pretty interesting to watch on shadow screens.
Emmy.
I think it would be cool to do the story of Rapunzel. Like, I'm already seeing the shadow puppet of the tower, and somehow we're gonna make it so that the shadow puppet, you can see the hair coming down, and I just think it would be really cool to do that one.
Laddie.
I think that A Nightmare Before Christmas would be really cool because it's already such a disjointed format. So I think it'd be cool.
Noemi?
I think that doing Romeo and Juliet behind shadow screens would be really interesting, just thinking about balconies, and you know, they talk a lot about light and the stars and all those aspects. That would be really cool to look at as shadows.
Brianna?
There's this strange, peculiar version of Alice in Wonderland that's done with taxidermy and raw meat. And I think that would work in any medium. Stephanie showed us that. And I think it would work in any medium, but especially this one. Medium, and they use raw meat.
Yes. Stephanie showed that during a break. And so it was a lovely break watching some taxidermy Alice in Wonderland. Wayne, would you like to share?
Yeah, I couldn't pinpoint a certain story. I think the best thing about shadow puppetry is that because it's told in shadows, it automatically has this sort of eerie effect to it, just because of what we associate shadows with. But I think with everything else going on around it and how you use light and color, it can be beautiful in that way too. So I think any show with like heavy underlining subtext would be like so beautiful. I mean, it's the first thing that popped into my mind does not line up with what I said, but I was thinking Lion King would be cool just because it kind of already starts out with silhouette work with the sun and how people are moving with their puppets on stage. I just think telling the show through that medium, you could explore so much the light and things like that.
Thank you for sharing.
Did everyone get to share? Oh, great. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining us on our YouTube opening and closing night, but it's not really closing because it's going to be there on the YouTube for a long time. And also tonight in about 45 minutes at 9 o'clock Eastern time, a version of our show will be up on the Rose's YouTube page that it has closed captioning in it. I'm sorry I couldn't offer that at the time, but it will be there in 45 minutes. And we have plenty of other camps going on this summer. We have Conservatory every summer. It is a wonderful group of artists that come together, as Wayne said, to learn something new. Also, plug in the high school internship. Yes! Wayne is one of our high school interns, and he did co-direct this show with Sarah and I, as well as lead activities, plan days, bring question of the day. He is a full-on co-educator for the camp. If you're interested in the high school internship, you can go ahead and check, ask a question on the Rose Theater Facebook page. You can go to our Rose Theater website as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's give another, I know you're all at home, but we've been doing this in like a vacuum too. So let's all give a big round of applause to all of our artists that created. I know, the sound, frenemies. And also a big thank you to Sarah, who came and joined us this summer via Zoom and really helped make this experience a glowing, supported, organized experience. And we really couldn't have done it without you. And actually, we couldn't have done it without every single human on the screen. Thank you for supporting the Rose. Thank you for supporting Safe Space for Artists to Grow. And keep on watching artist work at the Rose. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Actors, artists, we're gonna stay on our Zoom call because we can't say goodbye yet, but we're gonna leave the live YouTube. Okay, goodbye, friends.
Bye.